Hey everyone, it's David Sirota. So who's your date for the tax prom? Are you going to the tax prom? What is the tax prom, you're asking? The tax prom is a big event happening in Washington, D.C. this week in which major corporations that have a vested interest in keeping their tax rates low and getting new tax cuts, they're holding a big gala, a lavish party for about 600 congressional staffers, lobbyists, and Vice President Mike Pence. It's a huge event that's happening that's known in Washington as the Tax Prom. It's an event for the Tax Foundation, and as we report at International Business Times, the event is being bankrolled by major corporations that have a vested interest in keeping their tax rates low. It's an event designed to basically celebrate the Tax Foundation, which is a group that many people believe has been behind pushing for more and more tax cuts. But the interesting thing about this is that this event is happening at a time right when Republican lawmakers in Congress are negotiating the tax cut bill and a new corporate tax cut bill. And there are some interesting statistics to come out of this particular event. 61 companies are going to spend a total of about $1.1 million sponsoring this big event, the Tax Prom in Washington, D.C. And 23 of the corporate sponsors have a combined $800 billion parked offshore in at least 1,075 tax haven subsidiaries. So many of the companies bankrolling this event that is designed to push for tax quote-unquote reform, many of the companies that are sponsoring this have money, lots of money, offshore. Now, the House's tax bill that's being debated right now, the Republican tax bill, includes a provision that would offer a one-time reduced tax rate called a repatriation tax for companies to bring the cash home, all that money that's offshore. Sounds okay as a concept, right? But get this. While the current corporate tax rate is 35%, a number of Republican lawmakers want to lower the overall tax rate to 20%, and the one-time repatriation tax rate on all that money that's being kept offshore would be 12% for cash that's brought home and 5% for non-cash holdings, assets that are brought home. So in other words, under the guise of we're going to bring all of this offshore cash back to the United States, cash that American-based companies are holding offshore, under the guise of that, basically what Republican lawmakers are ending up debating and potentially proposing to do ultimately is to offer a massive tax cut on all of that income. And so what you see here is a real convergence. You have this event to try to celebrate tax reform at precisely a moment when the people who control Congress are negotiating the terms of an absolutely massive tax cut for corporations. And as the Young Turks has reported in its investigative unit, many of the companies that are pushing for these tax breaks have made really no indication in any concrete way that they're going to take these new tax cuts and use the new revenues to create jobs. So what is this all about? Well, look, Gary Cohn, one of the president's top economic advisors, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said that some of the biggest proponents of these new tax breaks are CEOs, that CEOs want these tax breaks. Again, not necessarily to create jobs, but because this will be a windfall for corporations and their shareholders, but not necessarily a way to generate revenue in which they will use to create jobs. So watch this week in Washington. See if anybody even covers the tax prom, but know that there is this big lavish party happening in Washington while these lawmakers are debating tax reform, a big lavish party underwritten and bankrolled by many of the same companies that will stand to benefit and make a huge amount of money if these tax breaks go through. These companies that are already keeping a huge amount of money offshore are right now pushing for even more. And the event this week is designed to essentially get them in front of and ingratiate themselves to all of the lawmakers and the power players who are going to be constructing that tax bill.